Hey, today we are analyzing 245 Humes Lane. And the reason we're analyzing this deal today is because we are trying to figure out how do we BRRRR this deal. Now, a BRRRR is a acronym that stands for buy, rehab, rent, refinance, and repeat. The whole point of this strategy is that there is an expectation that you will have to come out of pocket to to pay for the purchase price, come out of pocket to pay for the renovations. But at the end of it, ideally, if you're able to force enough value into the property, then you are able to pull back out all the capital by pulling out the loan. Because the difference between the loan amount and what you spent in the property usually is either in your favor or might just slightly be out of your favor, but you still will be able to get back most of your capital. So that's why we are analyzing a BRRRR today. Okay. Now, this is a deal, 245 Humes Lane. And this is in Florissant, Missouri, 63031. Okay. If I had to go through all the mechanics again, the reason why I picked this area is because in St. Louis, let's see if we go through this way first so you guys can take a look at it. This is how I first looked at whether or not there was going to be an outsized opportunity in this area. When I looked at Missouri and I looked at the St. Louis County, you can see how much the rents have gone up from fiscal year 2023 to fiscal year 2024. Now, from 1294 to 1565, that's almost a 15-16% return on increase in rents. But that was not the case when you were to look at what the situation was for the zip code. And you can go to Redfin, like they'll probably have like very common stats like market news or something like that. Let's see. There you go. So when you go to redfin.com/zip code / whatever your zip code is, you can see that, hey, the sales price actually went down by 9%. So you guys see what's going on here, right? When the sales price has gone down by 9%, but then the rents have gone up 15 to 20%, you might be stumbling into an outsized return. Great. So that's how I first figured out that I might want to look into this market a little bit more. And for a second thing I want to do is from this point onwards, I want to look at the FMRs, which stands for fair market rent. And that's going to be the rents that I can charge from a ceiling perspective. Okay. Now, from this point onwards, you want to look at the small area FMR rulemaking. And if you look at the small area FMRs, you can click on your state again, which is Missouri. You can look at St. Louis County again in this area, and you will see by zip code, by bedroom count, how much can you actually charge per property by bedroom count in this area. I typically will look for a property about 90% of what the ceiling is. Okay. And usually what I look for my base scenario is I go to affordablehousing.com and I will type in the address for my property. In this scenario is 245 Humes Lane. It's a property on the market. You guys can look at it yourself. Humes Lane. And this property is a 4-bedroom property. And then the rent is $1,800. So my ceiling rent here is $2,100. My midpoint rent is going to be 90% of that, which makes it about $1,890 if I remember correctly my math. And then my floor is going to be $1,800. So now I know what scenarios I should be underwriting my deal at to understand what my potential cash and cash return is based on however much I am doing. Okay. So in this area at 245 Humes Lane in St. Louis, now what I'm trying to do is figure out whether or not there is a possibility of me getting back out all my capital by doing a heavy renovation. Now, I looked at this property really quick. What drew me to this property was that there was some stuff that looks like they're covering on the wall. If you look at a wall here, there's like, I don't know if that's wallpaper, but something weird is going on the wall. I can't tell just from the photos. But then I also looked at converting the garage into additional bedroom, might make it a 5-bedroom. I already had a contractor walk here. Originally, I thought this might have been in a room, but what you can't see from the photo is right behind here. If you were trying to create a second egress, right, in order for it to be a legal bedroom, you need 2 points of egress, one to go outside and one to the inside. The problem with this property is that at the side right here, if you were to add an extra window for an egress, you would be sort of right on top of the property line. And sometimes in certain states, cities, or counties, there's a setback requirement, which means that your exit needs to yield at least 5 feet of space before you cross into someone's property line. So that was an issue, and that might not have allowed you to convert that bedroom. So what's your only option? Your only option right now might be to convert the garage. Okay. So now that I have some scope of work in my mind, I then sent a contractor out to get a contractor bid, and he was like, "Hey, roughly around 60 to 80 grand. I can probably get you a closer bid or more accurate bid, but that's good enough for me to at least analyze and underwrite the deal." Okay. Now, in order for you to BRRRR a deal, you have to figure out whether or not 245 Williams Lane. Let's update these numbers. 4-2. This is a 1356. This is asking price is 100, 900. This rehab is at least $60,000 right now. If I buy this for 100, 900, that's exactly what they're asking for. And then right now, I'm estimating that my ARV is at 170,900. I'm going to walk you guys through how I came up with that. And this is a pretty conservative number, but you guys can go through different scenarios. So I put a couple comps, and comps just means what are the comparable properties in this area that might resemble how your property might look like, from finishes, square footage, bed bath count, garage count, lot size, year built, etc., etc. There's a lot of different attributes when it comes to comping, and that's why comping sometimes is more like an art than a science. But you can put some thought process into it, and let me show you how and why. Okay, I want to pull up these 4 addresses that I found that might have been potential comps, and you can do this yourself by simply going to look for your property in the area. You might go to Redfin. Let's see, I was in 63031. And what you can simply do is go click on sold. Typically, you want to be within 3 months, but if you don't have enough properties, like last 6 months to a year is probably okay now that the volume of homes have gone down. You want to look for a similar bed, bath counts. So if it's 4 bed, you want to go above that. And then you want to just look at areas that are near your home. Now, typically, if I'm looking for a comp, I won't say, hey, if my home is over here in the top left corner, I'm not going to look for a comp on the bottom right corner, because you see how it crosses this major route, this major road. That's typically not a good idea for a comp, just because neighborhoods can differ significantly when you're going on opposite sides of big interstates or other opposite sides of other properties. So from here, you want to go in and quickly look at what other properties are in there. I did the pre-work here so I can save you guys some time and show you guys, hey, this property right here is a 4-2 at 1189 square feet. Okay. My property that I was looking at 245 Humes Lane, you remember correctly, was 1356. So cool. My property is about 150 to 200 square feet bigger. And so if I theoretically can get my property to look similar to this property, I'm sure I minimize this so you guys can take a look at it. As you go through the different finishes, I can now say, okay, it looks like they finished the basement, and this is how they finished the basement, and they put some recessed lighting in there, blah, blah, blah. Bathrooms look okay. There is a somewhat renovated bathroom here. And as I go through and understand what the finishes look like, what colors look like, what the vanities look like in the bathrooms, it just looks like rental grade, nothing like super spectacular or anything like that. So what I would do if I were you is, after you find these comps that you think might closely resemble your property, well, this property, if you just look at some Google Maps, it's a pretty close property. You just go on Google Maps. I'll just do it for example sakes, and I'll show you guys this. Boom, boom, boom. And then what you want to look for is 245 Humes Lane. 245 Humes Lane. And you'll see that, hey, this one's on the same side of the street. A little far, like 2-3 miles, but hey, you're still on the same side of the highway. And the year built is almost within the same decade. Let me see if I can look this up. 1972. This property is 1962. So within 10 years, that's usually within my minimum for looking for these comps. Then I have this other property, 946 Amarna Court, that was just closed in August 30. So rare recent sale. And you look at this property, I'm like, okay, I can probably get my home to look something like this. It's not like extraordinary. It's like a solid kitchen, solid home, solid floors, solid bathrooms. And again, they renovated the basement, so I know I need to do that and finish my flooring. And you look at it, you're like, all right, cool. This property is a little bit nicer, probably a little bit bigger, has a garage still at the same time. But this property at 1,300 square feet, which is pretty close to my home, so for $209,000. But that actually has extra half a bath, right? So you might deduct it and say like, hey, I value half a bath at like 5 to 10 grand, whatever that number might be. And you'd be like, okay, maybe a comp is right between the range of 180 to 200. Okay. Now that you have all your comps, and you have all the finishes, like you can try to look for more comps, but I just found more examples of similar square footage, similar prices around this area, and they all been recently sold. May was probably the oldest one 5 months ago. July, we found one in August, and when was this one sold? This one was sold in September. So very, very recent comps. So they are fairly representative of what and how accurate your numbers are. Okay. Now that we have all the comps, right? I'm gonna pull up my BRRRR calculator. You guys can take a look at this. Okay. Here's my market research. You can tell how I did my research first. I kind of went through my own path and I was like, hey, where are all my sold comps north of Route 67? Here's all my renovated properties. Here's all my non-renovated properties. Here's all my properties that are north of Route 67. And then another big row was north of Shackleford Road. So I found more properties that were there. And all I'm trying to do here is figure out, hey, in general, what are the sold comps within whatever area? What price per square foot were they sold at? What lot sizes are they? Bed bath counts, etc. To try to figure out what my comp should be. Okay. Now, I'm going to go to my BRRRR calculator here. And this is what's going on, right? I have access to a hard money lender that will fund 100% of the purchase price and 100% of the renovation, but up to a maximum of 70% of the ARV. So there needs to be a pretty big spread in the deal for me to be able to get 100% of the financing from a lender. So at 245 Humes Lane, right now the asking price is 100 grand or 60, and we're just going to plug through this, right? We're going to assume that the ARV is 180 grand. We assume that the market rent right now is 1890, right? Because we pulled that from FMR and we did equals 2100 times 0.9, okay? And our real estate taxes, let's see if we can get this from this property. 201 equals 201 times 12. Our insurance is going to be 74 times 1.2. So that equals to 74 times 1.2, and I am multiplying it by 1.2 because I'm adding a 20% premium to whatever insurance I think it will cost for that property. And when I multiply 1.2, that's how I get to 1,066. I'm assuming the vacant house insurance is just double that, a little bit more expensive at 2,000. Okay, so now I'm gonna put in my numbers for buy. Okay, now if I think my ARV is $180,000, okay, and we think we're going to appreciate by 2% a year. Here, I'm just going to widen it just in case people are looking at it on YouTube and you guys can kind of see what's going on here. We assume that the purchase price is right now at $100,000. Okay. Repairs is $60,000. We're going to assume that we have 4 months of prepaid interest plus 6 months of holding costs. So I'm going to take out the prepaid interest. Take out the hold this way, just keep it in the holding cost. So what this is assuming right now is that I'm going to pay 2.5% on the loans, whatever that amount may be, and that's going to be my rehab. Okay, now here's the problem. I won't get a loan up to 89%. The best I can get is up to 70%. So what does that number need to be? So what if my purchase price is 50,000? Okay, that's 60%. What if it's 60,000? 60,000, 63,000, 68,000, 67,000, 66,000. Okay, I'm right there. So if I can get a purchase price of $66,000 and my repair stays at $60,000, then my loan to value is 70%. So if I'm making a justification to my hard money lender that I think the ARV is going to be a 180, then I need to technically buy this property at $66,000 using a $60,000 repair estimate to get 100% of the purchase price and rehab funded by a lender. That still means that I still have to come out of pocket with closing costs, which is about 2.5%, and then some acquisition costs because I still have to pay for the loan origination, and I still have to make sure that I'm setting aside money to hold on to the property and pay the mortgage, etc., while I am still renovating the property. Okay. So my total on cost right now is $141,000. That's the addition of the purchase price and the closing costs. Make sense? Cool. If you guys are watching this on YouTube or Instagram, please make sure you tune in to YouTube because I can see your chats there a lot better. And you guys have comments and I can answer them if you guys have any. All right. So the next step here is as I go through this capital, assuming I put 0% down, right? Because I'm getting a capital, I'm getting a loan from a lender that's doing it. Now, here's my rehab. I'm putting $60,000. I got 5 months of renovations and I got 1 month to get the property ready to lease. That's my holding cost, and that's how much it's going to cost for roughly 6 months because that is all my numbers added together. I got some scenarios here like, hey, what if I go over budget, etc. But then the next part is I got my market rent, and here's where I realized like, hey, if it for some reason takes me 6 months, because sometimes lenders have what they call as a seasoning period, which means your renovation needs to have been fully completed, and then you have to rent the property for 6 months to show that you have stable income to qualify for the refinance because they want to make sure that you have the ability to pay the loan to minimize the risk to the lender, especially if you are trying to refinance it into permanent debt instead of using a short-term loan like 12% interest only. So something you need to figure out. Now, if I refinance and I refinance into a loan that is at 8%, my PITI after putting all my expenses for utilities, property management company at 8%, my repairs at 5%, my reserves at 5%, I will only net $200. But I get to get back all my capital. Now, how does that work? Okay. I think my ARV is $180,000, which means when I get an appraiser to come in and look at the home after I finish on my renovation, I'm betting that my appraiser will say that I will have this property worth 180 after I spent so much money onto it. Okay. My loan amount is going to be 75% because I'm assuming that it's going to be a 75% LTV loan. Just sometimes it's as high as 80%, but that's never guaranteed. And I want to be a little bit more conservative. Right now, I'm assuming it's an 8% interest rate. It might be higher, it might be lower. Who knows? But I'm just going to use 8% for now. Now, this allows me to get an updated PITI. But here's the most important part, right? If you guys remember, how much money did I really put into this deal? Okay. The money I put into this deal is a sum of my closing costs, really, right? And my acquisition cost plus my holding costs. That's why I had like $15,000 in capital. But when you refinance, right, because your total on cost is $141,000, when you refinance at 75% of $180,000, you're getting a loan back for $135,000. Okay? But if you remember, our loan originally was for $126,000. The difference between this $126,000 and this $135,000 is money back in your pocket. This is the beauty of the BRRRR model. When you are able to execute on a rehab well, and you have estimated your ARV correctly or accurately or as close to a number as possible, or you're able to increase value of your property significantly by either adding square footage by converting a garage or finishing the basement, this is how you get back most of your capital. So I spent 15 grand out of pocket, but now I'm only leaving 7 grand in the deal. What does that mean? That means in the first year, my cash and cash return might be 18%. But after I get back all my capital, I might be cash flowing to $3,000 per property a year, but that's close to $2,800. But because I only left in $6,900 in the deal, now all of a sudden my cash and cash return is 42%. Right? Not 18% because that wasn't even a 4-year cash flow, but that's why this deal is that much sweeter. you were able to have a higher return on your capital because you left less capital in there. Make sense? All right, awesome. So for me to think about it right now, it's like, hey, maybe if I think my ARV is $180,000, then I need the purchase price to be $66,000. What if for some reason I think the ARV is 200 grand? Okay, if I think the ARV is going to be 200 grand, let me show you this. 200 grand. And now I can increase my purchase price. Let's increase it to $80,000. Does that make it 70? Okay, so now I can say like, well, if I believe that the ARV will continue to go up, or I think it's gonna have a good chance of 200 grand, and I'm really confident in it, I'm gonna say I'm willing to pay 80 grand for this property, assuming that the renovation continues to remain constant at 60 grand, because I can get most of the capital back. But when you go to refi, you might have spent 17 grand on this property, but then you're still leaving 7,400 in the deal. And now your cash on cash return is lower. Why? Because your purchase price is higher now. So naturally you had to borrow more money, and your total all-in cost was 157, right? Because you had an all-in cost of 157, even though you bought a higher purchase price and you forced the value technically higher than before, spread is still not there. Your loan amount is still 150. So that's how you figure out what price to offer for a BRRRR deal. And you want to make sure you have a contractor walk the property, give you an estimated rehab timeline, an estimated scope of work to see and figure out whether or not this is a true deal that you can BRRRR and get back most of your capital, right? So this is the beauty of it. Like, you might have spent 17 grand, 17.5K on the deal, but at the end of it, you essentially get almost $10,000 back, and you get to reallocate that $10,000 to the next deal because you only left in 7,500. So you're using that same 10 grand, hence the word recycle or refinance and repeat, because you're using that 10 grand over. It's almost like you're getting that cash back. It's like, hey, I'm using the same $10,000, but now I'm able to allocate it to another deal. And that's how you really take advantage of whether or not you figure out how to decide whether or not something is a BRRRR. You are able to figure out how much cash can I recycle, take out, and apply to the next deal. From that point onwards, you can figure out, okay, well, if I believe that all my comps hold still and I'm pretty confident in the deal, and especially if I can get my contractor to go to the property, give me the updated scope of work, measure out everything, including how much flooring work is for this property, now all of a sudden I'm way more confident in my deal, and now I can figure out what I need to offer for this deal, hence to pull back all my capital. So this was a live deal analysis for St. Louis. It was a property that we, one, learned to figure out comps. We also got to pull market rents. We played around with the BRRRR model to try to figure out what makes it a deal, what makes it not a deal. And that's how we went through the process of buying, figuring out what the purchase price needs to be, figuring out what the repair amount needs to be, putting the loan amount in there and understanding what our holding costs might be, doing like a scenario analysis. So if it was 200 grand for the ARV, then we need the purchase price to be 80 grand. And you're just playing around with the scenarios, right? So you try to remember just exactly what you're doing here, and you carry that through, putting in all your assumptions, putting in your rent number so you know what your net cash flow numbers are after you set aside at least some money for reserves. And ultimately that gets you to your true cash on cash return, depending on what your rehab number is and how much the ARV is. Cool. So that's it. I hope you guys follow me on Instagram at Invest with Kent He. And I would really appreciate it if you guys are willing to leave me a 5-star review for my affordable housing podcast. We had some haters leave a 1-star review because it was simply talking about affordable housing. And I just need some help, guys. Sometimes they just don't understand what affordable housing is. They associate affordable housing with a stigma that might not necessarily be true. They think it's only related to guns, drugs, and drama. It might be folks that don't work at all and they're lazy. It's not true. It was just for folks just like my parents who were hardworking immigrants, didn't know English, and just simply wanted to put a stable roof over their kids' home. That's at least been my experience. Am I saying there are no bad apples in the world? Sure, there are. I'm not saying that's the case, but I choose to believe in the good of humanity. And I believe that when I'm able to give you guys all of this value by underwriting every day, like I have been doing for the past 22 days, and I'll continue to do so for the next 78 days to get to 100. I'm simply sharing all my resources with you. I have nothing to sell you. I simply want you guys to make a lot of money from affordable housing, help a lot of people. And this is why I created the community called Affordable Housing and Real Estate Investing. I did it because so you guys can not be afraid, so you guys can share these resources with one another, because that's the biggest problem. When you have a community, when you have the right team, when you have an all-star team, like once you feel good, if you knew you had like LeBron James or Michael Jordan on your team, you would feel good going to the game, right? No matter how bad you might be, no matter how new you are. I'm trying to find those resources for you, with you guys, and I'm trying to share them. Some folks might keep those resources to themselves, um, but I choose not to. I want to be different. I want to lead by example by sharing all the resources with all of you guys. I've literally had contractors come on to the podcast who are realtors and GCs at the same time, so they can walk the property and give you line item by line item estimates on the repairs. So you got it. So I hope you guys can find resources, share with the community, because I think you guys know how important it is to have an amazing team around you. Inspecting SD, the podcast is called Affordable Housing and Real Estate Investing. It is right on the Apple Podcast channel, so you can leave a review there. So I really appreciate the support, guys. Like, it means the world to me. I do this for the thank yous. I do it to know that I helped you guys and made a difference in your lives, because I hope that one day you guys will pay it forward to all of our kids, our grandkids, and our great grandkids, whatever, because that's what matters, right? We can't bring money to the grave, but just help as many people as possible and show a good example and set a good example for our kids. So I appreciate you guys so much. I'm going to do this again. If you guys have a deal you want me to analyze for long-term rental or affordable housing, just send it my way. I've taken a few requests from folks. Yesterday, I analyzed a creative finance deal that was 4 single properties in a portfolio of 4 single families in Texas. You guys can look at that on the YouTube channel. This live will also be on youtube.com/@Kent_HE. Just paying it forward, and I hope one day that you guys will take the knowledge that I have and do it the same way. One of the biggest excuses I hear is that I don't have enough money. One of the best ways I have found that you can raise capital for a deal is simply by showing people how you analyze deals and how you spot a deal. When people understand that you know how to spot a deal yourself, then chances are they'll be like, hey, maybe I want to potentially invest with CJ or Inspecting SD, right? Because they're like, hey, they know how to spot a deal. You can literally take exactly what I did today, same deal, same process, same spreadsheet, do the same thing, upload it onto your own YouTube channel, and now within your own network, you can become an expert and you can raise capital that way by showing people you have consistently over time done the work to spot what a deal looks like. And that comes from recognizing that maybe you do 100 times and you had to say 99 of them were not deals. And this one time I had a deal, I couldn't raise capital. So now you have a great story to tell. They'd be like, oh, you analyzed 100 deals? Well, next time you get a deal, let me know, because I want in on that deal. Because now they know you went through 100 and you have a resume to prove to others on your own YouTube channel. So I have nothing to gain. Let's just analyze deals together, copy my work, whatever you need to do. There's no excuse. Let's get more affordable housing supply into the market. Because every single person I put into one of these rentals, either through you guys or through myself, it's like helping someone like my parents. So I don't know what my life would have been if I didn't have that home growing up. I don't know what my parents' life would have been if they had not helped it. I mean, they waited 3.5 years in Boston to get into a safe home. And they just grinded, guys. They just grinded. They grinded nonstop. They worked 12 hours a day. One worked night shift, one worked day shift. But they grinded. And they grinded for 3-4 years before they got their home, before they start feeling safe for their kids in their own home. Because we got robbed. They had $5,000 of cash out, and someone broke into the home one night and took $5,000. And for them, making $3 an hour, that was all they earned that year. I don't know if you can imagine losing your entire year's of salary in one night, but that's what happened to them. And it's just a condition and a mental state that no one should ever have to go through. I remember my mom telling me how she tried to learn English, and when she was leaving school, she got jumped and she felt scared. So it's like my dad never learned English because he never had time. He worked 6 days a week, 12-hour days. My mom, when she tried to learn English, she got jumped. Like how sad is that? It's just not a life I wish for upon anybody. And I'm so glad that affordable housing allows us to choose who we want to help and how we want to help them. And affordable housing is also a way that you can be profitable. It's a win-win-win situation for everybody. You can choose who you want to help, whether that's homeless veterans, whether it's like women with domestic abuse, kids aging out of the foster system. You have a choice to choose how you want to help people. And then I just want to be the extra support that helps you decide and take that leap of faith. And part of that process is eliminating the fear. And by eliminating the fear, hopefully you will be a little bit more brave in taking the next steps. That's why we created the affordable housing real estate investing community. So, all right, no excuses, right? It was 9:30. I still got on. I still did the work. I still did the live, and I hope you guys will too. Thank you so much for the support, guys. I really appreciate it. You guys have an amazing evening. I will be back here doing it again all over tomorrow just for you guys. Thank you so much. Have an amazing night.